Hey everybody, how we doing today? Gorgeous day here in the Florida Keys. Beautiful. So I brought the red kayak out and we're gonna go offshore again. And today's plan is to use that guy, my 10 weight fly rod, see if I catch some dolphin on the fly. Yeah, it's been rough so far, but I think I made it. So let's head on out and get rigged up. Take a quick look to see if I could find my stuff that I lost. But yeah, we'll go on the flats and get rigged up. Wow, the tide is high. Oh well, gotta get wet anyways. So, get my transducer set in. Ooh, don't jump in the water with these. I already screwed that up earlier. All right, we've got the transducer set in the back. Put a little bit of water in there. That'll be good. So, what started off as a bad day, hopefully I could overcome it. Strap on the ice chest broke, so I had to put some washers, but I can only find 4 washers, so I did those, but not this side, but that'll get us through today. The biggest problem was my car's ignition switch locked up again, like I had that problem before. One of the pins is stuck, so I couldn't get it started. Was at the post office, but I fortunately got it wiggled and able to start the car. I still wanted to go fishing, so I figured I would just leave the key in, and once it's in it'll work. It's just I can't get it past the pin, so I took the key off the keychain and I just left the key in the ignition, and then I had left it in the car in the parking lot, and I just put a blanket over the steering wheel like I'm covering the steering wheel from the sun, but that's because my key is in the ignition. I have to keep reminding myself, don't shut the car, don't pull the ignition out or the key out of the ignition. So the first thing I did, I was out of gas. That sucked. So I stopped by the gas station. It was packed because it's coming on Veterans Day or Memorial Day weekend. So there's tons of people out. So I couldn't get a fresh pump. Finally got one. And then the first thing I did was shut the car off and pull the key out of the ignition. I was like, oh shit. But fortunately I got it to wiggle again. I guess I should wait. So I have to keep reminding myself, don't turn the car off. Another thing that happened is I broke the sole out of my fishing shoes, and then I found out I have no other shoes to wear. So I brought my old working shoes, my old loafers. Those are my fishing shoes. It's been bad. Then I wanted to do the fly rod thing, and then I found out I didn't have a slot in any of my rod holders to put the fly rod in, so I had to cut that out real quick and hack it up so that'll slip in. So overall it took me about an hour and a half of lost time just to get out here. I almost gave up, but I said no, we got to stick this out, fight through the pain. But we are out, hopefully. So let me get this set up and get out to the blue water. All right, I finally figured out what was wrong with my fish finder. It wouldn't power on, and I couldn't see the flash, so it wasn't going. I was checking the battery, kept rubbing the post and hitting it, smacking it, and I was going like this, I couldn't see it. And finally my glasses slid down, and it's because I have polarized lenses and I'm turning my head at an angle to look at it, it blocks it out. So it's been working the whole time. So all right, we're ready to go. Man, it's been a difficult day. And I'm not helping myself. Oh, my shoes are stuck. I just want to be out in blue water. All right, we are out here in the blue water. This is the first scrubby weed line I've come to, so we're at 275 feet. A few minnows hanging around there. Those yellow ones are the most interesting ones. chartreuse color. But yeah, so we're gonna keep heading out. I just wanted to take a quick little break since this is the only thing out here. Hopefully I could find some more weed lines like this, more compacted. But really not seeing much out here. Don't see very many other boats. I thought, yeah, there's one guy way out there. That's kind of where I'm going. But that's it. There's a few guys on the reef, more than average, but not too many. But anyway, so let's keep on heading out. Saw some weird creature here. What the heck is that? And all these little fishies are around here too. Oh, it's a bucket. I thought it was some creature. What is that? Oh yeah, it's just the bottom of a bucket. Look at all these dudes. Hey, there's a little guy hiding underneath it, using it for shade. Hey, get out of there. It's not your condominium. All these little triggery looking fish, foul fish. What are you guys doing out here in the random water? Show me some structure. Eat my finger. Eat my finger. Eat my finger. Come eat it. Eat it. Eat it. Eat it! Well, we've got life. It's always good to see. All right, moving on. Well, I made it out to 550 feet, and that is the only weed line I found, and it is a sad one. But that's it. I mean, we're talking nothing. What is up? The ocean is too clean. We need more garbage. So this could be an option, because I mean, that's all there is. I'm still gonna keep heading out, but I just remember this is here. All right, finally found a little bit of a broken up weed line here. This is about 650 foot. And this is the only thing I've seen since around 400, so I might just cruise along here for a bit. We're out here on the freighter highway. Still seeing nothing. Well, I found a little weed pad. I mean little. There's fishies here. Not big fishes, but there's little bait fish. There's just nothing going on. And that was it. That was the biggest weed pad I found. It's probably 20 feet by 20 feet. It's got lots of little baby fishies there, but there ain't nothing out here. Well, there is nothing out here and nothing going on. I spent the last hour plus trolling up and down that weed line there. Nothing. I've not seen a single bird. I have not seen any activity, bait busting, fish jumping, nothing. I was planning on staying out here till dark, but now I have no motivation to stay out here that long. I'm almost wondering if I should just head in and call it a day and ride it off. We're out here about 650 foot. It's about 15 miles. But just zero activity. I found a decent weed line. I mean, it's not a big weed line, but it was a compact, solid line of weeds there. I trolled down one side, back up the other. Nothing, so kind of poopy. All right, I took a little nap and I've come up with a new plan. I'm going to do a mixture of quitting and still going forward. So I'm just going to slow troll back and we'll see what happens. That way I'm moving. I'll keep an eye out for any activity at the same time, and if something happens, then something happens, but at least I'm still fishing rather than just running back in and no chance at catching anything. So that's our new plan. Well, trolled back to 300 foot and nothing. Not seeing anything. I'm kind of wanting to hang out until that sun gets pretty low just to see if by chance there's any activity out here that it just all of a sudden goes crazy, but not looking it. No birds, no bait, no fish, no turtles, no activity, nothing. Well, I should have took those early signs and just not come out here. I am screwed. Oh, we're out in 250 foot and the motor died. And I cannot get it fired up. Not good. Plus, I'm on the opposite side of the 7-mile bridge. So, depending on the current, this might really suck. Kind of see where I'm at there. I was just slow idling along, trolling, and then it started just kind of running rough. But if I gave it more gas, then it would rev up and go fine. And then I would bring it back down again, and then it'd go okay for a little while, then it'd start acting rough again, give it more. Then I made the bad mistake of, well, let me shut it off, or let me idle all the way down, see if it shuts off, and then I could fire it back up again and maybe get back in and not mess around anymore. But then once it shut off, it wouldn't start again. Only thing I could do is I didn't have a brand new spark plugs, but it wasn't looking like it was flooding out, so I tried putting some fuel in there with a gas with a little cap and pouring it in the spark plug hole. Changed the spark plug to a used spark plug that I always keep. Neither one of those worked. It's not even trying, so I'm not sure. Could be spark, but I don't know. Usually it's some sort of fuel issue. I thought maybe the spark plug fouled out, but this is going to be bad. I thought I was going to be coming in late just by sitting out here and waiting for the sun to set. Now I have to pedal all the way back. The only good thing is that my other pedals, the fins fell apart, so I've been using this almost brand new set I got with the red kayak. So at least this is in good condition. But man, this is gonna suck. I'm pretty far outside the reef still. Oh. Man, it's really gonna be bad if the 7-mile, if the current is going outgoing tide, and I have to try to go against it to get back up to the launch. Oh, this is gonna be bad. Well, the sun has set. I made it to the edge of the reef. Oh, we still got a long ways to go. Probably another 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, 2 hours. Just depends on which way the current is running. It's going against me in the 7-mile bridge. I am screwed. So I'm kind of angling it to the west. So hopefully I get out of the main current part of it. As I was coming in from the outside, pedaling, I passed a commercial guy that was fishing just outside the reef. And I passed him, was heading in, and then he motored on over to me, and he's like, man, are you okay? He said, I saw that thing. I was like, what the hell is that? And I said, yeah, I think I'll be all right. I got my pedals and my paddles and 2 jugs of water. And I asked him what he was fishing for. I thought he was maybe yellowtailing it, but he just said, oh, I've been live baiting and I got this big old tuna. And he had this 20-25 pound tuna that he caught right on the edge of the reef, outside edge of the reef. I go all the way out to 650 feet and he does it right there at 200, 150. Oh, that just crushed me. But the sun is down, making progress. Wind's to my back hurts, but slow and steady and we'll make it back. Oh, bad. Alrighty, so I didn't die, all right? I embraced the suck and just made it back. I mean, what else is there to do? You either make it back or you don't. That's your 2 options. So in regards to doing these offshore trips, or realistically, going out to these backcountry trips are equivalent in distance. Going out to the far back islands is basically the same distance as going out to the edge of the reef. Now, my offshore trips are basically double that, but still it's the same kind of deal. Backcountry though is a little different because you have all those actual islands, and plus majority of it is pretty flat, and I'd say probably for 4/5 of the distance I could wait till low tide and basically walk back in ankle deep water. So that's a little difference with the backcountry versus going out to the reef. One of the rules that I give people, especially the kayakers that are wanting to do these kind of trips, is I just tell them only go as far as you're willing to swim back. All right, because worst case scenario, that's what you're going to have to deal with. And it is basically you either swim back or you don't. And if you don't, that means bye-bye, body never found, because the ocean never stops. And it doesn't matter if you're in 1,000 feet or 10 feet of water, okay? You're going to sink and you're going to drown. So you can't stop. It's not one of those things where you can give up. You just got to go all the way until you can stand up, or you give up and that's the end of it. So making that decision to go out these distances, you just have to feel comfortable with it. I'm not talking about, oh, I'm scared of the dark, oh, I'm scared of sharks and gators and this and stuff, these irrational fears. I'm just talking about you sink and you die, or you keep paddling and keep kicking and you stay above water and you live. So those are the choices that you make. So before you start heading out these real far distances, factor that into your decision on how far you go. Outside of that, kind of the other rule of thumb is kind of your game plan. And I could tell you my game plan involves no help from anybody, okay? My figure is if you rely on somebody else to save you on anything, ever, okay, you're just setting yourself up for failure and a bad catastrophe, okay? Yeah, it's good most of the time, but all it takes is one. And when you're doing stupid stuff in stupid places around stupid people, or even bad people, bad places, and bad things, I've done a lot of that all over the world, and you just can't rely on people, okay? And your game plans can't be involving other people in order to have a true game plan for surviving stuff. So I get that a lot of times from the boat people, like, oh, you're crazy going out there in your kayak. And I say, well, what's your game plan? And I say, well, if your motor breaks, I mean, all it takes is one little tiny wire coming undone and your $1 million boat is done, okay? Because most likely you're not going to know how to decipher it, and then there's 1,000 other one little things that can break on a boat and you're dead in the water. So what are you going to do? Explain to me that, okay? And always, oh, I'll call CETO. And say, okay, what happens if you can't get a hold of CETO? Oh, I'll call the Coast Guard. What happens if you can't get a hold of them? Well, I'll get on the cell phone, I'll call the Sheriff's Department. They got boats, they'll come get me. Okay, what if you can't do that? I'll see if I can flag down another boat. And say, okay, so those are game plans. So basically you're saying is your whole survival is based on somebody saving you. Say, good game plan, right? So all the stuff everyone talks about, oh shit, hitting the fans, this is what I'm going to do, and your plan is, oh, so-and-so is going to save me. If they don't save me, they're going to save me, or that person's going to save me, or that person's going to save me, or I die. And that's your game plan, is basically the way to look at it. So for me, I don't rely on anybody for anything. So when I tell them, well, my motor dies, and that's one way of my getting back in and out, I put in those pedals, you see it in the video, and I walk home, basically. I stride it back. Well, if I break my leg or whatnot, then I grab my paddle, and then I start paddling and so forth. And if all that else fails, yeah, then I'm swimming. I'm making it back regardless. Yes, I do have a radio. Yes, I do have signaling devices and all that safety stuff. But I'm not going to rely on those ever, okay, unless it's just last based, gotta have it, I know it's just a complete failure or not, yeah, I'll use those, but in general, I'm going to make it back, and I've got these plans situated to get back. So My kayak is even better because it's an unsinkable. Kayaks are pretty much unsinkable because they're sealed devices there. Even if you had a rupture on it, it's very hard to sink a kayak because the nose piece and the tail piece are generally sealed, and water fills up, the air pops up, and you can't, it's like a bobber, you can't push them down below the water unless you cut the top off or the bottom tip off, maybe. But then I have an outrigger, which is another sealed container, and both of which I could basically float on and never touch the water. So those are extra parts that I don't have to worry about it. So I have a lot built in regards to making it back. So I think about those and all the time when I factor in going out that far. But here and there, just something to think about. Since the fishing sucked, coming back, I got to see the bright full moon, and then I understood why the current was ripping so hard against me after midnight, and all of a sudden it got really hard getting back, as well as why the fishing sucked that day. Going out there and I saw absolutely nothing. But I figured I could use it to show some of the things that I did good and some of the things I did bad, and how I've corrected those in the meantime, so that the next time this happens, I'm in an even better situation. So let's go check it out. Now, a couple of things that we can do right here. One of the bad things that I did is the day was pretty shit. I mean, things were falling apart around me, and I was just patching them up, and I was telling myself, forget it, don't do an offshore trip, just go do the backcountry fun stuff, stay inshore and just have a light day. But I was like, no, because it was just before the weekend, and it was the end of, coming towards the tail end of a real nice set of weather conditions. Offshore days are few and far between, and I was like, no, I'm going to fix these. The ignition on my car broke, I lost my cell phone, I found that there. What else was there? There was something else that was stupid wrong that I messed up, but there's few things that were going bad that, there's something wrong with the kayak as well. But anyways, there was stuff that was going wrong, and I was like, I don't have a lot of time to get out there. I finished my All About the Bait stuff and I need to leave. And then here I am just trying to throw all this stuff and grabbing stuff, and I couldn't charge the battery wasn't charging right on the fish finder. But I was working on all this stuff and it was fighting me, but I should have just called it right then because things weren't right. Just call it. Live another day, do something else. That was my number one. That would have just, it was just bad from day start off. On the good side, one of the things I did right was I usually don't eat before I go. I usually just end up going and then eating dinner. But this time I forced myself to eat a full meal. So I had a full lunch before I left, even though I was running behind. And yeah, that pretty much saved me from not getting home until about 2:30 and putting in about 6 or 7 hours of solid work, pedaling, paddling, trying to make it back. So eating was a big thing that saved me and gave me the fuel to make it back. Food related is the water. Offshore, usually when I'm doing inshore trips, I'll just grab a 2-liter bottle. Doesn't even have to be full, just so I have something. But when I do the offshore trips, 2 full bottles, 2 liters, so about 4 liters of water. Definitely drink quite a bit before I go. But another thing that saved me, because I drank a full 2 liters just going out and fishing, and then I drank the last 2 liters making it back. So hugely important there. You don't want to run out of energy, and you don't want to get dehydrated, because both of which will shut you down. Another smart thing, this is my general pedals. You can see they are basically rotted out and destroyed, and these are the ones I usually use for my everyday getting back from the backcountry inshore stuff, because I'm really hardly ever use them, so I don't really worry about it. But offshore, I have this almost brand new set that came with the red kayak that I really don't use unless I go offshore, but remembering to switch those out, and that was huge because these guys would have not worked. I would have been better off just using the paddle. So that was a big win. And I just did order these replacement fins. expensive, like 70-80 bucks a piece, and you need 2 of them. But yeah, I kind of figured out how important it was to have working pedals, so I got those fins to replace that, so that'll be up and running soon. Another smart thing that I did, although I didn't need it, but the lid, the hinges on the lid for my big ice chest, which I take when I do offshore trips, broke off, so the lid was separate. But this is a flotation device, basically. If the lid is on it, it's sealed up, and I could basically float on top of it. So it's very important, because as soon as anything happens without the hinges on it, the lid's going to fly off, they're going to separate, and then it's just a sinking piece of plastic. So I just kind of rigged it up with some old motorcycle tube, tire tube, put some screws in there, and then now I've got a working hinge there, so it's not going to go anywhere. So that was good prep. Another inshore offshore conversion that I did, which was very smart, was I swapped my inshore stand-up long paddle system that I use for stand-up paddling, as well as for push-pulling around, and swapped that out for my standard lightweight Hobie paddle, which is a standard sit-down kayak paddle, because distance-wise, the stand-up one really only works for standing up, and although I could do it for distances when you're doing against wind and current and it's sloppy, it's a lot harder to get around than when you're sitting on your butt and you got both sides working. Whereas my stand-up paddle is just a peg on one side, a handle on one side, and then the paddle on the other. So that was a huge deal, because I spent probably 1/3 of the time paddling after my legs got tired, and that always kept moving either between legs and arms, stand up paddle, sit down, back and forth. Well, here's the problem that was caused by it. I'm pretty sure that it is the problem was, this is my brand new motor. It has all the emission devices on it, and because of that, it uses this fuel pump system to be more efficient. This is actually a fuel pump, but it's not like mechanically driven. It's not driven off the motor or a cam or anything, or push rod or nothing like that. It's just basically vacuum actuated. So really it only works when the motor is running or you're pulling the crank, which causes vacuum, which then pulls the fuel through it up to the top and then down to the carburetor. So you'll see all these hoses, like from the fuel tank outlet there, it comes up this hose and it goes to the fuel pump. But you'll realize the fuel pump is higher than the fuel tank, so that vacuum has to draw that fuel up. And that's where I think is the majority of the problems that I have with this. So I have that same problem a lot of times when this is sitting for a long time. You have to pull. And I've learned that when it's been sitting, the best thing to do is maximize the amount of fuel in the tank, so it gets the volume up higher, and then you don't have to pull as much to get that little bit of fuel there. Then after that, there's a vacuum line that goes into the carburetor, and then the fuel actually goes out this side, underneath, and then into the carburetor down there. Well, my solution for all my other motors, this one I can't change because it's under warranty, but all my other motors, what I do is it goes from the outlet of the tank, and I get this little tube here, and it goes to the inlet of the carburetor right there. So you're talking basically 2.5 inches is all that the fuel system needs to be. But that is what has to be done for the emission side of it, and is in these new motors. This has that same emissions as that, but I took all that shit and threw it off, and I just put this little S tube there, straight there, and you see where the inlet is, it's below the tank, so I don't need to force fuel. It gravity feeds the carburetor, and I never had those problem with these motors, the older ones. But that was the key to the problem, I'm pretty sure. However, my problem came to is that I couldn't do anything about it, even though I just knew kind of what the problem was. But this is how I rectified that problem. So to rectify that fuel issue, here's the things that I've resolved it with. One, I brought a small screwdriver, And what that allows me to do is to access, there's a little hole in the plastic here that allows me to access the drain plug for the float bowls. So I could open that up and verify if there is fuel in the float bowls or not. And the next time that happens, I'll be able to tell right away if it's the fuel system or not. But this will help me to kind of just check that carburetor. I needed it for these other motors because I've had fuel problems as well. And checking that, cracking it open, making sure there's fuel in the float bowl is one. And the other thing is, if you get water and contaminants in your fuel, they'll generally be in the bottom of the float bowl, and you could drain that out of your system, and then you'll be running right again. So I always never had a screwdriver that would work, but now I do have one. I also have a brand new spark plug for my offshore system. I carry spark plugs, but for my older stuff, for my inshore stuff, and I just swap them out when there's a problem. I don't throw them away because they usually don't have a lot of miles on them. They're just used, or sometimes they're flooded out, so they're wet, and then I just swap them. It dries out while it's in the box, and then the next time it happens, I just swap it back. I just keep going back, but they're used. So now I have a brand new one in here just for the new motor, and then I still have my older ones that I have in my dry box where I keep my cell phone and stuff there. So I've got those all ready to go. And then the third thing that I'm going to add is, whenever I go out, I'm going to bring some starter fluid. And what that's going to allow me to do is get this motor fired up, because that fuel system can be a little bit sketchy, but if I get it to fire up, that will force fuel through it, because that'll get that vacuum really sucking, and that'll definitely pull the fuel. But it's a matter of getting that spark up and running. So by having some starter fluid, take out the spark plug, put a couple zaps in there, and then that starter fluid will fire a lot easier than any fuel issues. And that will also help resolve if I have issues with water in the fuel. Just getting the motor running tends to fix itself, because then it starts flowing and moving fuel, and then it might run shitty for a little while, but it'll clear itself out. So those will always be going with me on the offshore trips. And I actually replaced the batteries in my radio before that trip, so I knew that if I really got into trouble, that at least I would turn on my radio and it would turn on. So happy about that. And that was the same thing with my navigation lights. I've got new, actually almost brand new navigation lights, so the red and green and the 360 light. So it's good to know that I'm not out there in the dark. I've got correct lights on, and I'm not going to get run over. So that's always a good thing to have a peace of mind about. Another thing I needed to be a little bit more cognizant about was where I'm fishing. Basically, between Marathon and Big Pine, this is probably the largest gap for water transferring from the Gulf of Mexico side to the Atlantic side in the Keys. Okay, so you've got the 7-mile bridge here, you have Long Key, then after you get to like Isla Morada, there's nothing. Get down to the Keys, lower Keys, there's a lot of small stuff, but you have all the islands as a break. So the main funnel of water comes through here. So one of the issues that I ran into is that when I am stuck out way over here, okay, and I need to make it back, that current is flowing through the gap here in the 7-mile bridge, and it's pushing the hardest right through here, which is the direction that I need to get back to the launch. So usually I don't pay as much attention to it when I'm offshore, because the current is generally going east to west or west to east with the Gulf Stream. But as you get inshore, then it's really affected. The hardest part of getting back to the launch is right around the bridge, because that's the narrowest part of the whole channel, and that means the water is pushing through the hardest. So definitely have to watch out for that. Also have to watch out for the tides. So basically the tide times, And going to the chart, whatever area you're at, is to know when and where the outgoing tide versus the incoming tide. So that'll make a huge difference when you're trying to get back or going out. If you're at best, you can time it so it's an outgoing tide when you're leaving and it's an incoming tide when you're going back in, and then everything is great. On my side of it, it was basically around 10:30 the tide effectively changed, and it was a couple hours of me having to fighting against the current, and that was the worst part of the whole time. Another huge pre-planning issue is the weather conditions. So a couple of things here on Wind Finder is, one is the direction of the wind. Okay, so you never want to fight the wind on your return. Okay, so that's specifically for if you get in trouble. You don't want to have to go against the wind. You want that wind to be pushing you back to where you need to be. So south to north is great for going on the Atlantic side, because I can go out to the Atlantic, and then if I break down, the wind is going to push me back. That's great. Not so great is going out to the Gulf, and you're heading out to the Gulf and you're like, man, look how fast I'm getting pushed by the wind. I'm getting way out there. I can go even farther because the wind's pushing me back. Then you break down, and then you find trying to get against the wind is extremely hard. Another important factor is, just because like you might have a window in the morning or the midday or early afternoon, okay, you need to know what it's going to be like after that in the evening. So if things go bad, okay, it's not like you're going to be back in the same amount of time. You're going to be like really late, like 6 hours, 8 hours behind. So you need to look that far ahead to when you're coming back. So on this day here, I'm thinking I'm coming back usually at nighttime, everything's okay, but then boom, it starts getting bad there, and then it gets really bad, and yeah, then you're in some serious problems, especially if you're going the wrong way against the wind. So I would never ever go on a day when immediately after there's a pretty major storm coming, or something's bad's going to happen in that later night or evening. Stay inside, stay close, and then if you get into troubles, it's not so bad. But you get extended too far with 3 days of horrendous hell there, yeah, you can say goodbye. You better get on that radio right away, or wave somebody down, or do something, because you're not floating back, you're not swimming back, you're done. So that's very important for pre-planning. Yeah, this is going to be bad here, whatever that's coming up. Alrighty, so there's just a little part of embracing the suck. Now, this by no means is like all the factors in regards to doing offshore stuff or long distance traveling. That's just what I gleaned from, that I personally gleaned from this one trip that I did where it really sucked. Alright, so yeah, definitely if you're interested in doing this kind of thing, you better really dig into it and take in all the different factors that I've learned through all these years of heading out there. So what might be nothing that I consider now is because I've done it so many times and I already have it factored in where I don't even have to think about it. But if you're just going to start doing it for the first few times, yeah, you better have that at the top of your list. Your list should be all at the top of the list. And for those people that are like, oh, Steve, take me with you, I want to go out with you. Yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend that either, because when push comes to shove and it comes up to my life or yours, I'm pushing and shoving. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Bye.